Welcome back to part 2 of the space station build from 2001: A Space Odyssey, my most favorite movie in the whole world. For me, there was never anything better than 2001, and I mean that. And some of you were remarking on the less than steady camera work. Actually, this has very good motion stabilization, and this is the little camera that I use on my airplanes. This is 1080p, and I call it HAL Vision because if you see, it's got a fisheye lens on it. It looks just like HAL. It's even got the little red spot in there. We're going to turn this on. This is a Mobius. This is like the smallest but clearest camera that they make that I've found to put on radio-controlled airplanes. So now we're taping, and now you can see Mary, and you can see the camera that we actually use when we do our fancier videos with the 4K expensive camera and the Sennheiser lavalier. So, which is why you're hearing me so clearly and robustly right now. But this camera does really well. I'm going to use it a lot because Mary has stuff to do too. Her life isn't following me around with a camera and shooting everything I do. So, I'm going to put that there. That's our second camera, our B camera. And I'm going to show you what I've been doing. Now, as I talk here for a minute, I made a mold of the quarter panel section. And what I mean by that is that in the wheel, we've got 1 quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. So we've got these panels here, and they're basically all the same. Windows are a little different on them. So I made up one, and you can see as I'm talking about it, the process that I took, and many of you have seen it on Patreon, to make the master. And then you can also see how I laid this up here to be able to pour the silicone. And I used 1065 silicone, V1065 from Berman's. It's really good silicone. This is the same silicone that I used when I did the TOS Enterprise. So, and it lasts forever. I mean, those TOS, those big molds up there for the saucer section, they're still viable. They still work perfectly. They're not tearing. There's some of the other molds down below for the engineering section. So what we're going to do is I have this plastic wall put up here. It's just styrene, and I'm just going to release it, and very carefully, because we no longer need this. This is set up. What I have to do now is make a mother mold. And hopefully that didn't, yeah, it didn't, not much. I gotta make a mother mold because this is a flexible material and it will not hold its shape well without being supported by a harder material. We are gonna use 1630 Breakfast of Champions, which is a polyurethane, rigid polyurethane that very much like what your model kits are made out of, your garage kits are made out of that material, except this has filler in it so I can actually lay it up, and it sets up in about 15 minutes. I also back it up with some fiberglass cloth to give it strength, and it's very lightweight. We used to use stone, tool stones. We don't anymore. So anyway, you see how that is. We got this all, I'm just gonna push all this back. The reason I'm going to do that is because when we lay up the mother mold, as we call it, with the 1630, the hard mold, the supporting mold, whatever you like to call it, we want something that is going to have keys in it, because this part is not keyed, and this is the first half. So after I lay up the supporting mold over this, we're going to lift this whole thing over, remove this clay, and then pour up this side and do the same thing again, except we're going to have keys. And keys are very important to have so you have good registration and things don't shift around. So I'm going to take some of this water-based clay right here, like this. This is EM210. It's very common. It's been around for years. It's a gray clay. We call it layup clay because you can sculpt with it, but it's actually much better for just doing layups like this. We use EM217 for sculpting. It's got oil in it. It doesn't dry out as quickly. So basically what I'm going to do here, we can actually lose all this for now. And if Mary comes around over here, I'm just going to flatten out some of this like on this tabletop here that I saved from the trash. This is perfectly flat, and it's waxed, and I use it to make molds on it. It's a perfect thing. A lot of people use glass, but I've had glass break and cut me, so we don't do that anymore. So all I need now is a tool of some sort, any kind, will work good. Just give me one of these. This should work. And I'm just gonna cut some keys, like so. That just had to stick, didn't it? Anyway, and what I want is keys that are shaped like this, and you kind of go at a little bit of an angle, like that, so you don't have any negative draft. You see that? That's what I want. And I'm going to take that and put it right on here. Now what that's going to do is when I lay up the mother mold is it's going to go over all these, and when I take all this off and remove this clay, on the opposite side of the mold will be a key to key it back together, which is why we call it keys. I think this old mold here, this has some just very basic bullet keys, but half domes, but you know, it really fits together good. This is the same material, so it's really great stuff. So that's what we're gonna do over here, except we're gonna do it with this type of key, which is even better, and I really want a good key on this so that the parts, the right and left halves, match up rather well. And just, it's really simple to do, just gotta have the right angle to it like that. Because you don't want to do it straight up and down, because you do it straight up and down, then you're gonna have, you could lock up. You don't want any undercuts. Negative draft is a mold maker's, not a mold maker's friend. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to kind of do this all the way along the edge here. Probably would help if I move this little piece of garbage out of there, like so, and do that. And I will probably after that continue on with this camera, so Mary can get some work done. And I'm going to, well, I put that on backwards. And I will show you the pouring process and working with the 1630. So these keys are going to be just what I need. Yeah, like that. So I could bore you with this, but I'm sure you'd rather go off and watch part 10 of the Big E story, which I'm putting up tonight. So we're up to 10 parts of 47 separate shows I did on the building of the original Enterprise. We found them all. We're putting them on Vimeo, where YouTube won't bother us because we use music that wasn't public domain for something I'm making no money on at all. Just showing you guys how it's done. So go watch that. When we come back later, you'll see some more of this. So I'm using the hub of the space station and a piece of clay under it. And I've got a tripod of sorts, and I wanted to show you something very important that really I probably haven't discussed too much in the past, but probably should have. If you guys are actually, you know, following what I'm doing to make your own molds, and then you run into problems because I leave things out sometimes, not on purpose. Actually, I do. It's fun. Watch you squirm. Anyway, this always creates a very sharp edge when you do it this way, using the plastic and stuff. You don't want that sharp edge in your mold, in the mother mold, because it makes it hard to get it registered back in when you remove this flexible silicone gasket. This flexible silicone mold. So you want it to go back in and register fine. So what I do is I sort of cut off this stuff, and you have to do it anyway, and square up the edge so it can go back in without being so finicky. So just about have done. I just use a pair of scissors, just go along like that. It's good enough. You see that little piece sticking up there? Well, that will actually be backwards in your mother mold, and so there'll be this little dimple that you're trying to get this point to fit back in. But now it will. This is pretty good. And then I'm going to continue on with the key making, because I really thought that I should take care of that first. And Mary's working away over there. gessoing the next round of painting she's going to do, fluid art, which she's become very prolific at and very good at, something I haven't tried yet. I know you're all seeing that alien in the background there, or what you call an alien, and that is part of my art show, and that is a paper mache piece I'm working on, and it will look like I sculpted it out of clay when I'm done with it. It will be that good. I've learned how to work with it, and that way there's no molds. So anyway, we'll come back because it's already gone on too long, and I'll probably edit this back, and we'll show the next step. Okay, so I'm putting back that plastic we saw earlier, and yes, I'm invisible, aren't I? Oh, it's noisy here today. It was so noisy, and I apologize, but this place has become much more of a industrial sort of place than it has. I'm going to cut, I need a couple more pieces of styrene, so I have this handy styrene right here. I'm just going to kind of cut a piece like this. You do know this is how you cut styrene. I can't believe it sometimes when I see people use a pair of scissors. Anyway, and we're going to place it like so. Now this is going to capture any runoff of the 1630 resin, so we don't end up with a big mess. So there you go. So you can see there in HAL vision. It's very good rendering, Dave. You've improved a great deal. I do see a gap over here. You might want to correct that gap. Okay, well, as I drop stuff in it, because it'll leak behind there. I don't want it to do that. Now, the other thing I have to remember, too, is sometimes you just can't get the keys to be really clean. Keep in mind that when you flip over the mold and remove all the clay, you can see the keys right there. So you can get down in there with a file or a knife and stuff and chip out anything that might cause a walk-up later. We'll come back when we actually pour the material, the 1630. I thought you guys and gals would get a kick out of this. This is 1630. This is how it arrived from Berman's. No fault of theirs. They packed it very well, but UPS was pretty ambitious. Despite that, the cans held together and they still opened up. Now, which is typical, and I'll try not to drop the camera down here. You'll be in for a real interesting first-hand experience. I know you love that, Gary. I'm going to show you something. I have to point down where you can't see things till I do this. This is the filler. Basically, what 1630 is, it's just BJB 2-part polyurethane resin. And for those of you who wonder what that is, I think if you have a figurine in your house or a plastic model garage kit, that's what it's made out of. And many companies make it, and there's many different versions of it, but this is BJB's 1630, and what's so cool about this stuff is it takes 15 minutes to set up instead of like 3 or 4 minutes with the stuff you mix and pour, real quick so you can get a part out. So you can actually lay it up and brush it up in a mold and it stays fixed. And that's why all this filler they put in it, that's just filler. And that's the resin. Then you have to mix all this together the first time you get these because it settles down to the bottom. You can use a Jiffy mixer, which really works great, but I'm being lazy, and this stuff is a pretty fresh batch because that is soft. Usually it's not that way. Usually it's as hard as diamond. And you got it, so you put the Jiffy mixer down there on your drill and you get it that way. So I got to stir both these together. Then you mix it 50-50. And you got 15 minutes. Take a brush, start pouring it on, and add some fiberglass to it, and you get a great little mold. That's how you do it. That's what it is. Now you know. Now, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Because we're on HAL Vision still. I've got, I believe this is 6-ounce fiberglass cloth, and what I'm going to do is cut off some strips ahead of time before I pour our 1630, and like so. This cloth I ordered from CST, really good source for fiberglass. You can order online. They have everything. Very flexible tripod. Yeah, so usually when you get 1630, it's been sitting for a while. Yeah, it's been sitting for a long while. And I mean, you have to use that drill and that mixer at the end of it to get it to stir up. But this stuff must be a real fresh batch because I was able to stir it up in just a matter of minutes. First time ever, in fact. So we're gonna go mix them up. So we're rolling. All right. So as you can see, I got the stuff in. We did get some leakage, but it'll just chip right off this top because it's waxed. You can see it's starting to get a little thicker. I just poured it on, but you can see it's still quite liquidy, and it's been almost 10 minutes, not quite, about 9, and this is when it will start going off much faster, and you'll get to a point where it's kind of doughy, and that's when I'm going to slam in that fiberglass real quick and conform it, and then we'll back it up with another coat. This was about 300 grams, so I didn't use that much. Actually, 600, 300 and 300, because it's a 50-50 mix. He has lots of projects going on. Nothing like we have here, but nevertheless, lots of projects. So I'm going to kind of shove this stuff down in here, like so, and get it to wet in. Luckily about this stuff is it's got a bias to it, so you can actually curve it and get to do things you can't get any other kind of cloth to do because it's got a weave. Okay, so we got the mold open, and you can see it here. We are on HalVision for sure. I like HalVision, actually. It's wide field. You can see everything. The sound's not so great. But, yeah, it came apart pretty good, and I used one of these surface tools here to get away a lot of the hard edges and X-Acto blade to carve out some of this stuff, which could be problematic later. This stuff, because it has so much filler in it, really carves very easily. A lot of that, what you're seeing, is actual clay that's still in there, not the actual material. The material is much harder than that, but you see how you can carve out that stuff and get rid of the stuff that's clay. But we're not going to worry about this too much because this is going to dry out a bit more of the clay that's in here. The main focus now is to lay up a clay wall right up to this edge. And we have to Vaseline the silicone because silicone sticks to silicone. So luckily we got a nice indicator here of where to go. We got a pretty straight seam line all the way around. Doesn't matter much. We're just going to sand it and put tons of primer over it anyway. Well, stupidly, I think I had the lens cap on when I showed you this. And I had opened up the other side of the mold and cleaned it all out. And the keys were good and everything. But now what I've done is I've clayed up in here and Vaselined the silicone because silicone sticks to silicone. It's the only thing it does stick to, and now I'm going to pour up this silicone into there, and that will probably have to sit till tomorrow, and then we'll do the other side of the 1630 mother mold, supporting mold. Nothing like a good cup of tea, and that is a good cup of tea. So, and then mix it a little bit more. It will always set up no matter what you do, I've always found. So even if there's white, pure white, the catalyzed portions of it will set off the non-catalyzed portions of it. So we're just going to do this, let it all run down here. There you go. I got a little bit of clay in there. It doesn't hurt anything. But you can see that edge there, which tells me I need to come up a little higher. So we're going to add some more. Okay, so as you can see, this is all poured up, and look at this. Where it makes contact with moisture and in cold, you'd think it would go off slowly on moisture and cold, but actually moisture kicks off RTV silicone pretty quick. Now this stuff is a little softer because it's right in the zone here, but this is totally going to be set up in the next few hours. And here, this very crude wall, I tried to do one out of styrene. It really wasn't working because this surface has kind of been used before for the same things, and as a result, it won't stick. Nothing will stick to it. So, because I've been using it for molds in the past, and it's just styrene. So I built up a clay wall around it, because really all we need is to pour some silicone, waste as little of it as possible, which is what this does, is move things in closer to what we need and not waste a lot of silicone. So, and then after this sets up, of course, I will build a mother mold backing out of 1630 around it, so which will just slip off. I'm pretty sure. Looking at it here, it looks like, yeah, it'll slip off. So if not, then what I will do is make the mother mold in two pieces. But I'm just going to pour some silicone in here because we need to get these molds quick. And what that brings me down to is this piece here, which is going to be done in two halves. Okay, and then this, which is the spoke, which is also going to be done in two halves, and then cleaned up afterwards because it was done very hastily. But once I get the parts out of the mold and they're in resin, I can clean them up. This part's fine. This is going to be really nice. So, and then that leaves, of course, these. I got to mold these, but these will all be put on something flat and a wall of clay built around it and pour, and we have all our molds. Okay, so here we are on a Saturday, and I'm talking really loud so I don't have to hear my next door neighbor's music. She's having a big event this weekend, and they're over there working, and oh boy. So, but I'm not on YouTube, so they won't sting me for using some music that's not public domain. Anyway, I'm going to remove the clay from this. I'm just curious to see how this, you know, the clay's not coming away. It should just like fall away like nobody's business, like that. See, it's all sticking to it. Okay, I had my tea. Actually, it's sitting right there. Doesn't this take you back? It takes me back. Remember when I did the Enterprise? You're all watching those builds again, and this is how I used to do stuff. Yeah, just like this, with the little handheld camera, not a $4,000 camera with a $700 mic. Anyway, but you know, there's just something to be said about it because I can just do stuff on the fly so quickly. Yeah, the sound's not as good, the image quality is not quite as good, but it's clear enough, and you're getting to see this. I decided to break this into two halves. I see undercuts here, and I'm imagining trying to open this and struggling with the master end to get it out, or parts. So it's just a really quick and dirty second half. So I'll lay up this half, then knock this off, Vaseline, do another half. I'll have a two-piece mold I can strap together. Over here, I put up just a really quick and dirty catch for the 1630, which I'm just about to do. And this time, I'm not going to put a splash coat on first. I'm just going to go right ahead and just pour the stuff on it, because this is not getting detail. This is simply a supporting mother mold. So we're going to do that now. Okay, another trick that some of you may not have ever thought of, but I learned this long ago working in shops for the motion picture studios. And you never throw away little pieces of wood like this. You have a big bucket over there, well, trash can, full of it, because it comes in really handy to save on clay. Now I have this to about the height I want it. All I have to do is cut some slices of clay and go around it and lay it onto the wood, and I'm ready to pour silicone on this half. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to pour some silicone, and I'm running low on silicone, and so I'm going to just make this mostly a very thin jacket, supported by the mother mold. There's no way I'm going to fill this all the way up. So, and have enough silicone to do the girders and other parts I have to do. Okay, so we're opening this mold. I wasn't going to, but now I just couldn't help myself. And we're of course going to lose lots of parts off the master because it goes in leaks underneath. Actually, we didn't lose too many. This looks really promising. And all that at 4 o'clock. Yeah, we got a good mold here. You'd think by now I'd get this stuff right. There you go. Oh, here. Now, that's just great. I mean, no problem. Oh, that is nerve-wracking. And it is rather soft. As you can see, this side fits back in really well. And what will happen is that part that's not fitting in so quite as cleanly will, in fact, be keyed to this. So when these keys all lock together, so I just need to clean this out very quickly here. Against the wall there, which should. I've never had that happen before, and that's the truth. I'm not just saying it, really honestly. So get that pretty well like that. I'm going to put the two halves together. You'll see that they lock together very well. Very well, in fact. And that should lock everything up all the way down. And a nice close. A really nice seam, and I'll show you what that seam looks like inside in a minute. Now, hopefully you can see this. I don't know that you can, but you can see if I drop the camera down in there, you'll really be able to see it. The camera will fit in there. I'm going to hold it in my mouth. Okay, let's see. Try to get a little more light in there, but you can see it closes really well all the way down. I put a hole on the other side, and that way the light shines in there and I can see what's going on, because I didn't know what was going on. And it wasn't closing all the way, so what I had to do, was drop it on the floor. Is go into the pole and push it back together, because even with the keys, you got that long jacket in there, and you're hoping that it all keys together, but you can't see it because you don't have a straight shot looking at it. But I got it. Whew, okay. 5 o'clock, I get to work on my airplane for a while. You know me, I like to build model airplanes. It's my great passion, especially the rubber-powered ones. This is what we have left. Tomorrow I'm going to build a box around this and make one big mold about that high off here that will have all these parts in it. I need to glue them down to this board, yada yada yada. If there's any silicone left over, I also mold those. I probably will have, I'll make another little box for that. This is pretty well set up now, and I'm reluctant to move it much more, but if I can just get a little bit more thickness up here, that would be great. But it's going to be fine because it'll fit well into the mother mold. I know it will. As long as it's smooth, I won't have any problems. So this is probably the last time I'll be able to push this up and around here, because it is going off, as you can clearly see. And this is what you can do when you do a brush up. But if you do much more than this, you risk having a uneven surface the way it looks now. The way it is right now, it will settle back down and look smooth. Okay, I'm back. Did you miss me? I don't think you did, but maybe you did. I said that this would be part 3, but I'm still here on Sunday, and there's still more I can show you. So I did this. I'm very proud of this. Yeah, I'm just going to pour silicone in. I'm wasting space over here, which I wish I wasn't doing, but I am. There's no other part I can put in there. And then I got this for this piece, because the other one was too warped to actually do. And I want to thank Chris Adrian, who's a masterful, wonderful model maker that Randy Newbert hooked me up with, who's up in the Bay Area, I believe Oakland. Sorry, Chris, if I got that wrong. Who is the one who laser cut all these parts. And he cut them out of, this is out of plastic, these are out of wood. He did the front of the hub for us, and a few other odds and ends, which have really helped speed up the process. He wished he could be here to help me build, but it'd be kind of a long commute for him every day, so he did the best he could by providing me with all these great parts. And I have a bag, there's some more here, which that's the one that's warped, but I'll actually use it in the build. And there's a bunch of test parts when we were trying to work together to figure out what would work best on this that he kept sending me. He sent me a bunch of parts, and I can use those too, because I can cut them down, resize them, and all that stuff. So this will be a gang mold, so I can pour up tons of these, and then tons of these, and it'll help me so much to assemble this model on time. It's Monday, and I'm back for more. I'm going to finish the molds up, and you're probably wondering, some of you are new, where am I? I'm not in the messy room with all the garbage everywhere. This is my office at SNG, and this is where I edit, do CGI, and movie filmmaking work that I do. And this is one of our other machines over here, which is a lovely Alienware machine. So I'm well equipped for all your editorial post-production effects and CGI. And of course, we do lovely models too. Of course, you didn't know that, right? And of course, there's the very controversial, uh, especially as of late, enterprise that I built 9 years ago now from scratch. And there's one in Ticonderoga at the original Star Trek set tours, and there's another one in Texas in a personal collector's home at his home theater, and it really is a theater. And then I have mine, and then there's about 10 other kits, 11 other kits out there. I know one that was built, so they're out there, but I no longer make the kit. But that is the original lady, and yes, the buzzards turn. The buzzards. You'd think after 9 years I'd get it right. And of course, oh yes, as long as we're in here, let's have fun. And we got the wide angle. This is how Hal would have seen the Discovery. And yes, it has a full interior and other pods inside, and you can see Gary Lockwood sitting up in the window. And I love this model because I love everything from 2001. You think? Of course, the Star Child that I did and the Moon Watcher I did that Adam loves both of. I wonder if he's going to want a space station. He might. Anyway, I'm going to go to work. Lovely X-15. Long story. We'll talk about that in another show. But we're going to go in here. Mary's upstairs, and which is where my model airplanes are. I can't wait to get to them. But we have, well, here. We got molds. Here's the mold for the hub, which came out rather well. I'm really pleased with this mold. And the two parts was a really smart thing to do. We had some leakage. I just have to trim these off. It's really rough right now. I just took it apart, but it's perfect. It had no bubbles on any of the veins or anything. So we got the hub. We've got the main section with all the windows in it and stuff. Here's our gang mold for our girders and stuff. And here's another one for girders and stuff. And what's left is to do 1630 mother molds on the back of this. And which is made out of this material here. See? So you should know that by now. So that's what I'm going to do. And when I come back, we'll take these apart. We'll look at these. And then we're going to pour some parts. So it's all clean. And that's because we're done with the molds. That was grueling. That was a lot of days in a row of pushing hard and having a big mess, which I don't like. But this is the plan, the basic plan, that I'm going to assemble all the parts on one wheel at a time. We got the unfinished wheel and they got the main finished wheel by pouring in this resin over here, which is my resin of choice, Alumilite White. Trust me, there is nothing like it. This is the best resin I've ever worked with. And over here, remember that mold table? It's all cleaned up, waxed, completely smooth. I am so glad I saved this tabletop when I saw it being thrown out, because it's perfect to keep molds like this gang mold and this gang mold sitting on top of something absolutely flat, so it doesn't need any mother mold, and I can just pour parts in it. Parts, all I want. And if the resin flows over, it'll just chip off because it doesn't stick to the wax. So I'm going to pour up this one first. I know you're going to love it. We're going to do the human Rotocast. Okay, I just wrestled with this thing and poured up, 600 grams total, A and B, of our Alumilite. And I poured it in here and rolled it around, and I had a leak back here, which I knew anyway. And I thought I had it plugged up, but it was not plugged up very well. So, but this was just one coating. You can see how incredibly even and smooth and beautiful that is. I mean, you can't get that with any other resin. You just simply cannot. I mean, not that I'm aware of. This stuff worked wonderfully. Let me try to get more light in there so you can get a better look at it. This mold, even though it's got, a very light mother mold to it, it's still very heavy. And it's a good thing I work out and do yoga and everything else. But that's very helpful for one casting. Now, you can see the blue through it now, but I can probably pop this piece out. It would be paper thin, but the Alumilite's so good, it holds its shape. So I'm going to do one more coating, and that should do it. And that should be very lightweight so I don't have any engineering or structural problems of the wheel being supported because it's so light. All right, we're going to do a hub. 150 and 150 is 300. Right, we're going to pour it into the hub like this. Oh, I'm just going to pour it around in there. I got about 3 minutes to work with it, if I'm lucky. And I got this bucket here, which is a bad old screwed up bucket, so we don't care about it. I pre-powdered the mold. The reason I put the powder in is because it's the best way of popping the bubbles I know of in this stuff. You get no bubbles. Trust me, just any kind of powder. Cornstarch, baby powder, doesn't matter what it is. I'm making sure I get it into all the nooks and crannies here. This is not a Thomas's Muffin. This is a 2001 A Space Odyssey model, although I suppose that to some of you it looks very edible as it does to me. But I have to watch it very carefully, and it's at that point now I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this, and then I go like this. Whoa, too much. Still going out there really good. Whoa, this is going good. You lose some this way, but you know, it's got a heart of gold. So, and I think we're at that point where I can turn it upside down, and then turn it up right this way. And then turn it like this way. Because I want these parts to be hollow and nice. So, and now we're just going to let it go, like that. Nice and even. And then do that. You can see it's becoming very even inside and nice, and gives you a nice piece to work with. So I've done better, but it's still going to be fine. And this first casting is almost enough that it will be thick enough. So I'm going to do one more pour in this, maybe half the amount I used, just to make it a little bit thicker, and we've got this. All right, so we're opening molds here, and we're going to take a hub out here. We already took out the, what do you call that thing? The wheel section. Now, hopefully we'll be able to get this out nice and clean like. Nice thing about aluminum is it likes to break off right at the sharp edges, which is always good. So you can get the part out the way up. Problem with it is that even though they say you can demold the part in 15 minutes, you really should let it sit to the next day, which is terribly slow when you're doing something like what I'm doing. But I got some distortion in the first wheel section I pulled out, and you know, it's going back slowly. You can see it. It'll be fine, and I can use it, but I'll know next time not to do that. You usually learn from your first pull what you're up against. Okay, so that came out pretty clean like that. So now let's just get it away from the mold. And then we'll see, oh, look at that. There, come out, come up, wherever you are. Gary, I can hear you. Elliot, I can also hear you. The second part will always come out easier. This is the way it works. How could I deprive you of this? How is it even possible I could be so mean as to deprive you of something so amazing as watching Steve struggle? It's a nice part, it really is. We got everything in there, got a couple little bubbles. But now, right before your very eyes, I'm hoping. Now I know some of you know about this, but and all resins have a memory. And if you warm them up slowly, not too much, not too fast, it will just magically start going back to its original shape. Got some bubbles on these, on the bottom side, which is where you're going to get the most trapped air when you're making molds. But you can see, it's going right back to shape again. And that's all you have to do is warm it up. Now that's nice and warm. It will go back to its shape. Somewhere around here I have some. So we're just going to let that cool off, and as it cools, it will naturally. I see there's like a big area of blue down in here, which means there was probably something that leaked under and it got it out in the first. Oh yeah, so you can see these little flashes here, and that's what that is, which is not a problem because it's under there. So I'll just paint over it, and you'll never know. But the parts are really good, and if I stop playing with it, it'll just go back to being perfectly round, no problems. And that's a really beautiful part, which we're going to take over here and put right here. Oh, sorry, I should put the camera on you. The camera like that. Yep. And so here we got a wheel section, or is that a reel section? Which looks really good. And we got our hub. First one, we're going to do 2 of these, and of course, when I open these molds tomorrow, we'll cast up those, and 1 of these for each side, and this, of course, I'll just cut off on the extra one that I make, and so we can put the whole hub together. What do you think, Rosie? You're still doing this stuff. It's driving me crazy. Play ball with me. I play ball with her every morning. She's also a resin head because she's been too near the resin. So, okay, it's another day, and I want to show you the differences between the 2 resins. Of course, the Aluminite's my favorite, but this stuff, admittedly, is quite good. I mean, it's a little cheaper. It's pretty strong. It is somewhat flexible, and this I tried to slosh pour. It didn't matter for this part because this part needs to be very strong. In fact, there's going to be a pipe going through it and some Bondo and stuff, just because this is where everything's going to mount. And here's the hub, and although you can see how much more this is like pouring latex, it's just so smooth and nice, and it rotos really well. And the parts come out white, which is kind of nice. It's not necessary. Now, I remember this part yesterday, how I was flexing it around and bending it and stuff. Look, you can't even move it now. It wiggles a bit. It is flexible. It's a bit like styrene, which is actually very, very good. But, I mean, it's really strong, as is this now. It's not flexible. You can't squish it or do anything to it. So the next day, it's pretty hard. So what I've done with this other part, which I just laid up, is when I feel this mold is cold, I'll open it. And it's still warm, so I'm thinking, another 15, 20 minutes, I'll open it up. This stuff, on the other hand, is ready to go. And boy, am I making a mess. But you know what? There's nothing you can do about making messes with resin. It's just messy. I've tried everything. So what I'm going to do is open this mold up. I put clay on this end to keep it from going through. Now I need 1 of the shafts. I don't need both. So I'm going to just kind of force this open. The mold fits together really good. They're all messy. I didn't clean them up after I opened them and make them look all nice with the rasp and stuff because I'm up against time, like nobody's business. So I'm going to just kind of open that up like so, and that like so. Pull that off like so, the mother mold. I'm going to get this side out here next, because everything's Vaseline, it releases quite easily. And then my favorite part is always the releasing of the part. Now that clay was put on the end to keep it from leaking. And look at that, it is so beautiful. Look at that. And I didn't didn't go into there, unfortunately. So hopefully on the second one it will, and whatever one comes out the best, I will use. I mean, pretty well it did get into that part. Not that I couldn't fix it. But this is very strong, this resin. I really like it. And it breaks off. See, any place you have a nice sharp edge like that, it will break off very cleanly. See? I wouldn't lie to you. Look at that. Isn't that great? Well, I might a little bit. I just checked to see how the overall blend is on all this. I mean, this part's really quite good. It's straight and nice, and it's everything we need and nothing we don't. Okay, we're starting to get some success here. These fit together. Yes, they fit together. And it doesn't matter which orientation I use. That's a little blood. DNA for people to discover in the future when they dismantle this model or something. Anyway, but they match up. These all match up. The heights and everything all match up end to end, which is good, and it also makes a round. So, I mean, right to point to point to point, this is like, wow, really something. So, I'm going to pour another one now so I can clean up after this mess. Whew, boy, almost 5:30, but look at that, huh? That's, I just didn't quite have the poop to do this one right here. But I will tomorrow. I'm all set up and cleaned up to go. And do this one last piece, and then I'm going to do these smaller sections to go on the unfinished part and cast up the parts for the unfinished part. Cast up all the girders and all that kind of stuff. These molds I'm done with. I've decided not to use this. I'm going to use the PVC, and then this larger PVC happens to fit over this, so I can cut the rings very straight and concentric of this and wrap them around this, and I'm going to do it for each one. It's going to be stronger this way, straighter this way to do it with these, and so that's what I'm going to do. So that'll be the one part I do have to fabricate each time, besides those little sanctions which go across here with the cables. But I think this is coming out really well. I'm very pleased. It's very hopeful that I will actually finish in the next 6 to 7 weeks. More tomorrow. We're going to see a whole wheel. So, good progress today. As you can see, we got a full wheel. The parts are coming out really well. And this will be assembled completely in a week or so, of lights and the whole bit. And then we'll do the back wheel, which is the unfinished part of the wheel. And eventually we'll stick these parts together like so and connect the two sections, which will have a pipe fitting going through it, and that'll be mounted to another pipe fitting to a base. So this is going very, very well. Plus, these parts are coming out very well out of these molds here with the Alumilite. This material here did not work so well. It was very brittle and broke several times, whereas this absolutely is fine. The parts are really, really strong, a bit flexible, which is good, so they won't snap and break. And of course that'll be for the unassembled part of this model. I thought it was taping the whole time, and I looked down and the thing was off. So I may be repeating myself here, I'm not sure until I check the footage, but basically what I was saying was that I would assemble these flat. They self-align because these points all have to match because it's the same piece, and they have to match to this. This is very much self-aligning. You can't get it off. All the spacing is exactly the same, and it's completely symmetrical, as you can see. So all I have to do is build those flat on their backs, both wheels, and then once they're fully assembled and the front one's lit, then I can actually put the pipe fitting and the hub between them, and we've got the whole model. Okay, so yesterday I tried to pour this resin, which is a very good resin for casting stuff that's fairly solid, and but I would never use it for these parts. I mean, it was a disaster. I couldn't get them out. It shattered all over the place. I'm going to show you just with one hand. Actually, I don't have to do that. I think I can just kind of do this. Okay, watch. It makes you want to cringe, doesn't it? And I can do this to them, and they just go back. And so it's flexible enough. And in a day or two, I poured this yesterday. This has been sitting a full 24 hours. But in a day or two, these will get a little stiffer, but they'll never be so brittle that they just snap on you. And that's why I like white Alumilite. And I've had a lot of people argue with me. Why white Alumilite? And I'd say, well, have you ever tried it? Well, no, but I've tried their other stuff. Well, any of the yellow stuff, the poor, the stuff that you just cast in for getting solid chunks of resin, is good. It's going to work great. But this white Alumilite has a quality to it that you're seeing right here. And I'm just trying to show you right on camera how easily I can trim this stuff away. I can really manhandle this and not worry about breaking the part. You know, the rest of it I can trim off later, just do a flat sand and that's it. And if you distort it, it'll go right back. I guarantee you in less than 30 minutes this will be back to its normal shape. And so now I'm able to pour out all these parts. And they just come all off right in one sheet if you pull it out at the right angle. And it got all that other stuff out of the mold, so the mold's really nice and clean now. And ready for the next pour, which I'm going to do presently. So that's great. So over here, these are the girders for the curve. And as you can see, these are very flexible, and once they're actual structure put together, they're going to be very strong. But if you bang into something, it's not gonna break. So white aluminite, you guys, nobody I know uses it except with maybe the exception of Randy Newbert, who advised me highly to stick with it and not try a BJB product or some other product. You know, if something works for you, yeah, stick with it. But you know what? Sometimes you may think that that's a really good thing, and it's not. You find out that this is a better thing. Take it from me. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to resins. I've worked with all of them, pretty much. And I've never found anything better than Lumelite. And that 2 gallons of Lumelite I ordered directly from them was like $120 delivered for both of these. So it's a misnomer. It's misleading that people will say, "Oh, that stuff's so expensive." No, it's not. Yeah, there's stuff for $90 for 2 gallons, but you know what? It doesn't work like this. I hope I made that clear. Okay, more progress. Wipe my nose. I put one of those together. Now, I'm looking at this, and this was probably based on the Monsters in Motion model. There was a model kit, maybe it was Fantastic Plastic, but they did a schematic off this based on a model by Scott Lowther, www.up-ship.com. He must have looked very carefully. I think this is the CG. So there I was taping away, or videoing away, and I looked down and it's not flashing anymore. So I don't know what I got and what I didn't got. But we're making good progress, and I started doing the second wheel. And you can see that Chris Adrian's parts are really working out well. It's a huge help, Chris. Thank you so much. Also, there's a gentleman named Scott Lowther who did this schematic here, and I think he's the one who built a model. This is based on a SolidWorks image, I believe, which I have enlargements of these areas. This has been a big help for me getting this done. Over here, I've run more of these parts that have been molded off of Chris Adrian's parts. Over here, I'm casting up partial sections that will go in these locations here, 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 and here. And the reason I'm doing them out of this is rather than cast up and waste a bunch of 1630 Lumelite, I figure I just cast it up out of this stuff. It sets up faster and get it off quicker and have all the sections. What I'm going for is to have all the parts I need so that I can build both wheels. Okay, I rejected those other parts. In fact, no, I took the trash out. It was too difficult to get them to fit together again. So then I got thinking, I'm running low on Lumelite. I got about a third of those 2 gallons left. And I got to make a bunch more of these, 4 of them, and then, cut the ends off of them so I get a good match. They weren't matching. They're matching now. This is very loosely fitted together here. Eventually it will be just right when I make some sanding and gouging and things like that. And I start thinking, wait a minute. You don't need to run 4 more because, these things here I can just build and shape. So I took the same piece and I cut it up into these sections here because, as you can see here, they really get quite small. This one's really hardly built at all. This one's a little bigger. This one's a little, so because it's under construction. So I can easily do this. Now I've got all the parts I need to cast up all these, come all the way around to here, and then one more time tomorrow right on here. So I'll have everything tomorrow. This does officially end part 3 of the crazy lunatic building of a scratch-built 2001 A Space Odyssey Hilton Space Station 5. Boy, what a mouthful. See you next week.